You can all remember probably one of your early lives, or maybe more. I know I can. I was 7 years old and I lived in Merrill, Wisconsin. Now, Merrill, Wisconsin was a great place to be 7 years old because I could get on my bike in the morning, be gone all day, and when I came home, my mom knew where I was and what I'd been up to. Now, the other thing about being 7 years old in a town like Merrill, Wisconsin is 7 is about the time you discover that there's you and there's the big world. And you begin to want to sort of explore those edges and push against them and see, what's out there. And I loved those edges. I would literally and figuratively, if there was an edge, I was there. I would walk curbs. I would walk garden walks. I would walk railroad tracks. And then I spotted the fence at the end of the garden. Now, some of you will remember fences like this because they were, about this high, and they were metal, and they had these very pretty little arches on the top. And then right about 3 inches below the arches, there was the 2x4 on end to support it. And that 2-inch edge, 3 feet off the ground, called me. This was like the piece de resistance of all edges. And so I am up there and I'm walking this edge. And my mom spots me. She's across the yard so fast, I didn't know moms could move that fast, but there she is, and she has me off that fence and on the ground, and she says, "Do not ever let me catch you on that fence again." Which, through my 7-year-old brain, comes out, "Do not ever let me catch you on that fence again." So I knew that I had to sort of bide my time and find the right moment. An opportunity presented itself about a week later when my parents got invited to a grown-up party. Well, they looked around for the babysitter, and we had run the last babysitter off, my brother and I had. So they looked at my brother. Well, he was 12, 5 years older than me, and a respectable age to begin babysitting. And so I listened as they negotiated a deal with him where he was going to get 25 cents an hour to babysit me. Well, I thought about that for about 2 seconds and thought, without me, he'd be getting nothing. So I managed to negotiate a dime an hour to be babysat. So we had a lot of reasons to have, my parents go off to this party. And most of all for me, of course, was the fence. So the minute their taillights disappeared around the corner, I made a beeline for that fence. And I am up there. And of course my brother's down there saying, "Now wait a minute, Mom said," but who listens to brothers that much? And to be fair, within a minute, he was up on the fence on the other side of the alley. So there we both were, walking this fence. Now, one of the things about these fences that you should know is that if you were to lean on this fence to talk to a neighbor or put a big basket of vegetables up on the fence, those pretty little arches would bend over. And I was coming along this fence, and I'd just come to one of those places where those little arches were kind of bent over the little 2x4. But I knew that I had the flexibility of a cat and could step over that easily. But I hadn't noticed that the tip of my tennis shoe was sort of just under where it bent over. And so when I went over, which you knew I was going to do, instead of being able to land like a cat, I went over more like a tree. And just sort of feet up, and I landed on the limb, of course, and it made a nasty sound and really hurt. And being 7, I was really loud about it. Well, my brother, of course, was there, and he was panicking. He got me up and, brushed me off, and he got me to the house and settled me into my dad's big chair and sort of settled in next to me with his arm around me. And finally, I calmed down enough to sort of assess the damage, and it was clear that this arm was permanently bent at a 90-degree angle, and I was not going to be able to straighten it out. And then I looked at my brother, and I realized he was in a total state of panic because this had happened on his watch. I mean, he was in charge. He was making the big bucks, and look what had happened. And then I realized something more, that he was actually thinking that he was going to tell our parents how this had happened. Well, enter the lie of self-defense. Now, this is probably the first lie we really ever deal with in our lives. I explained to him that we really probably wouldn't be in our best interest to tell them that we'd been on the fence because they had specifically said not to do that, but that perhaps telling them that I'd been running down the sidewalk and I tripped on the crack and fell on a sharp stone would be more believable because I did this on a regular basis and had the scabby knees and elbows to back it up. So the parents came home, of course, and walked into the living room, and there we were in the same chair together, touching, so they knew immediately there was a problem. So they came over, and like your parents, my mother had instilled in me that I am never to tell a lie. But she had never said anything about making up the lies. So when she asked me what happened, I did the only thing open to me. I turned to my brother and I said, Tom, you tell her.